In patients with acute hypoxic respiratory failure, high-flow oxygen therapy has been shown to improve oxygenation and comfort while decreasing mortality rates. In patients with COPD, nasal high-flow oxygen therapy has been shown to reduce exacerbations, improve lung function, and enhance quality of life. High-flow oxygen therapy is available on the Puritan Bennett 980 or PB 980 ventilator for neonate through adult patients at flow rates up to 50 liters per minute for neonates and pediatric patients, and up to 80 liters per minute for adults. I'm going to start by showing you how to set up high-flow oxygen therapy for a patient who is on invasive ventilation. So first we must start by putting the ventilator into the standby mode. So let's do that. Come over to Menu and put it into standby. Now what I want to do is disconnect my tubing to make sure we get it into the standby. And I press confirm. That's the first part. Now we're going to switch our modes over to high flow therapy. I do that first by touching the vent setup button. And then you'll notice on the top where it says ventilator type, there's a high flow oxygen therapy tab. And as I touch that, it tells me a couple things I need to do. Right here it says, remove the expiratory limb and Y. So I'm going to remove the expiratory limb and the Y. This part here, I'm removing. We're not going to use that. We're just going to use the inspiratory limb. Then it says, touch all and press accept. So now we're in high flow oxygen therapy. And I'm just going to hook up an interface for an example. So that's the interface. Now what are the primary settings for high flow oxygen therapy? On the bottom here I've got the flow, and so I can dial that up. And once I get to 60, there's a soft prompt where I can continue to go up even higher. So I'll touch continue, and I can dial that up to as high as 80 liters per minute in the adult setting. Then there's also an oxygen percentage that you can dial up to whatever you want to do as well. So those are your two primary settings. When it comes to actual alarms, if I go to my alarm screen, you'll notice that there are no settable alarms for high flow oxygen therapy. But there are some alarms that are basically preset for you in the background that you do not need to adjust. So when I think about those alarms, there are three. The first one is that there is an oxygen sensor alarm, just like in invasive ventilation, so you have an oxygen sensor alarm. Then the second one is if there was an occlusion of some type on the circuit, there's an occlusion alarm. So let me just simulate that by just kind of plugging off the end here. And there's a little bit of a delay. If there was an occlusion, one of the places you can look to is the status display. And so as I simulate an occlusion, you'll notice that the pressure rises up right here. And that pressure is limited. But we also see on the top that there is also a constriction to the flow. So the measured flow is less than what they expect, and that's one of the alarms that you can have. So I'll release that. So that is the second alarm. And then the third alarm is if I did something wrong with my setup. So let's just say that I didn't disconnect the expiratory limb and the Y. And so I'm going to plug them back in. And if it senses that the expiratory limb is still on there, it will give you the third alarm. And if I just touch that, it says flow detected at the expiratory sensor because I have this expiratory limb attached. So those are the three alarms that basically are set in the background. There are no settable alarms. And that's how simple high flow oxygen therapy can be on the Puritan Bennett 980 ventilator. In summary, the PB 980 ventilator's high flow oxygen therapy software may help clinicians improve workflow and support the continuum of care.